5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy, and welcome to Wacky Wednesday. We're going to talk about promo graphics, and you're going to find out how does old Myrt really design them. And believe it or not, Mr. Myrt and I have bolted the door so that none of my very distant cousins are going to be teaching tonight. I'm just going to share with you a few things that I've learned along the way. Now, joining me on the panel today, our cousin Russ. Hi, cousin Russ. He's freezing his tushy off in New Jersey there. Hi, Andy Hatchett. He's made it too. I see he's in the community commenting. And Jill Ball from Down Under. Good to see you.
G'day, everyone.
Good day. I love it. And Betty Lou's here on the panel. If anybody else wants to join the panel, you're more than welcome. There aren't going to be any pop quizzes or anything like that at the end of the day. We're going to do a short, well, now it's 57-minute overview of how on earth do I create these graphics. Now, I've got 5 things for you to remember. PowerPoint, layers, borders on graphics, word art, and rotate. Those are the 5 things. PowerPoint, layers, border on graphics, word art, and rotate. So in the olden days when I taught adults in the post-secondary and corporate setting about how to use computers, we were supposed to only come up with 3 to 5 things to talk about in an hour, and so by golly, that's what we're doing. All right, so the first clue is that old Myrt uses PowerPoint. And in fact, if you look at the screen now, this is the graphic for this evening's presentation. And it's pretty much the same text and background. I just changed this little box here, and I'll show you. I'm going to pull up PowerPoint. And that's what got me into trouble last time. I had too many versions of the program open. All right. And the other thing to realize is many of us are already presenting at our local genealogy societies, and we want to come up with a cute graphic that goes along with our PowerPoint. Why not use our PowerPoint? Make good use of it and use that same graphic that we used with our PowerPoint. Now I'm going to let you see the inside of my PowerPoint and show you how I did this for beginning genealogy. Let me make this slightly smaller, close that so that you can see this. I'll also make this quite a bit bigger. So here's the circle around a graphic. That's one of those 5 things. Here's the layering, that text for beginning genealogy. See how it just can be moved all around? It's layered on top of all those other cool graphics in the background. The blue and this pretty little green here are part of just a normal template that's available in Microsoft PowerPoint. All right, now the rotating part comes in this way. I'm just going to show you with this one slide and we'll go forward. Let me move this out of the way. It'd be kind of boring if all of these were just lined up straight as can be. When you put your mouse pointer on the graphic that you've brought in, and you can see the handles on the sides and the corners so that you can make it larger or smaller, in other words, resize it. There's also this little option here that shows up. It's a rotate button. And if you hold your mouse pointer over that and then move your mouse, I'm moving my mouse to the right, or move your mouse to the left, that's how you get some interesting looks to the whole thing. So it isn't so boring with everything all lined up like soldiers in a row. All right. Now, layering is kind of interesting too when it comes to graphics, because the very first picture I put here on this when I was designing it was this image of my dad's aunt. Her name is Elsie Hansen, and she married his mother's brother. Nope, that's not who she married. Oh yes, that was her maiden name, Hanson. Anyway, if I had left it the way it was, and I'm going to bring forward, bring to the front, the very last item I brought in because I decided, you know, that's a lot of pictures. Let's get a document in there. I had to move this back so that it was like a stack of photos sitting on my computer desktop or work table with the census record on the bottom. Now, how did I get it to layer or to move back? Well, when you've got the handles on a particular graphic because you've selected it, you right-click and you get this option, bring to the front, send to the back, or send backwards. Now, backward is just like one step backward. But if you really want it to go quite far back, let's see what happens here. See how it put all of these other images
So that's like going to the bottom of the stack.
Precisely. It is exactly that. I gotta tell you though, when I designed this beginning genealogy, I'm still not convinced I did everything right. Because in a way, it's almost too dark to have this text here. I don't know. But it was, I had a number of things to do that day. It didn't work to do it any other color, but look what happens when I try to change colors. I can kind of preview. This is what it would look like if I did red, blue, maybe that's easier to see, green, lighter green, white. Do you see how I can preview all this? Now we're accustomed to the fact that in our word processing, now that just doesn't work. That white is horrible. And like I say, I'm not sure that black is the best. It's just what I went with. What did you like best, Betty Lou?
A little bit darker blue. You had a little bit darker blue.
Okay, that darker, how about this darker blue? That
might
looks a little better than the black, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, we may actually change the logo for this then. The promo material. It does kind of look brighter, doesn't it? What do you think, Jill? Did you like it better than the black? Let me pull this one up. Here's what it looks like with black.
Yeah, seem to. It's just me.
Okay, I heard
the blue.
you like the blue better. Yeah, I think I was just still wearing the black being in mourning for the death of my mother last month and going with the black, but I honestly do like the blue better. You know, after you've done a couple of these, you get better at it. And I do think that as a result of this class, we ought to create a promo graphic for this beginning genealogy. And I'll show you how you actually make the graphic. And then we're going to start with one from scratch after we look at a few samples.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, yes, you bet.
From doing websites in the past and having some people with vision difficulties, I learned a trick. And you're changing the color is exactly the trick. You have what you want is contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about black and white, but you have an interesting situation with the black text. You're black on white and multiple colors on in front of the census, but it gets hidden when it's in the dark blue on the right. So it's not enough contrast on ING or OGY, but the contrast isn't there. But you make that lighter blue, which is what you did later. The contrast is now there. It's larger, but it doesn't. It also on the census image it is black on black and white. Now it's blue on black and white.
Yeah, I'm looking at the original one that I did. This text of the letter B and the letter G, it's kind of too close, I think.
Right.
And by moving it over slightly and changing the color, it seems to look a little bit better. Now, here's what I try to do, folks. It's just like anything. If
Sorry,
you just
Kathy suggests try red.
Okay, let's try red and see what it looks like. Okay, first of all, I've got it selected as red. Oh, that's really bright. Let's try a different red.
Here and Jan says yellow green.
Okay, here's a yellowy green, or that's kind of pretty. This is kind of I don't know. There's a lot of different options here. This brick red is a little bit easier than this bright red on my eyes.
Yeah.
But that's kind of me. All right. Yes, I could change the background too, which is the blue in the very deep background. But I haven't done that. That's an advanced thing. I'm just going to deal with just the text. Let's see. I like this blue. I think that's the blue we decided we liked. Okay, and we like that it wasn't, let me move it over. It wasn't here. This is like too much on top of these pictures. It looked better when we moved it over. Okay, that's good. All right. So let me tell you exactly how I make it into a graphic. Now, I will tell you that I've cheated because for years I taught Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, Word, Access, you know, I remember when Access first came out. Before that, we were all doing it in Excel. But anyway, first of all, I'm going to save the entire thing in case it decides to hiccup during that process. And now I'm going to go to File and do the Save As. We'll put it in the same spot. And you have to change it to a different form. Now, we've been doing pretty well in Microsoft Word, creating our handouts and then maybe creating a PDF of it. But look what you have available here. TIFF, PNG, JPEG, GIF. I recommend PNG. That's what I've been doing. So can you see that okay, Cousin Russ, I hope?
Yep.
All right, so I save it as a PNG and click Save, and the next part's going to be tricky, so watch this. It will ask me, which slides do you want to export? It's not really taking it out. It's still keeping the program there, just like when we export data from a genealogy program, it doesn't actually damage or remove that slide from the PowerPoint. You want to say just this one. If you say all slides, it creates a folder with the same name as your PowerPoint. And then it goes slide 001, slide 002, slide 003. It's not very fun. Just say just this one. You don't need a folder with 100 slides in it. You just need this one. All right.
So you're saving just the one that you want to use as your graphic.
Right. Now let's go find that graphic. Let me pull that file folder over. Okay. Here's the graphic, and this is what it looks like. All right, that looks pretty good. Now let me go to Microsoft, or let's go to Facebook and I'll upload it. I'll pull up a tab that works, Facebook. And I shall pull it over. Because amazingly, Facebook, and this works the same way, let me go to a, that's okay. I'll just go right to Dear Myrtle. We'll add a photo. We got to look for it. It's on my desktop. See, here's the PowerPoint. You can tell by the icon. I'm not sure these are the largest. This is the PowerPoint. That's how you can tell the difference between the two of them. This is the one we want. And I'm going to type, this is the moved promo graphic for the beginning genealogy. Now, it doesn't look too impressive right now. The full graphic is there. When you go ahead and click post, it comes in its full glory. The same thing happens over in Google Plus. The same thing happens if you've saved this file somewhere. Like, for instance, I use that as one of the items in a blog post. Get the URL. This graphic has to be shared somewhere so that you can tweet it or put it in Instagram or pin it over there on Pinterest.
Or put it into your Blogger.
Yeah, put it into your Blogger. That's good. In Blogger, I just upload that same graphic. So it looks pretty darn good, and it wasn't that hard to do. Now let me talk to you a little bit more about some things. Let me pull up a different PowerPoint. Oh, great, I just closed it. There we go. I'll make it full screen. There we go. We'll close this one, and we'll go open a different one. Part of having you look at this folder that's on my desktop is we'll go to my computer and we'll go to my desktop. I'd like you to look in this one folder here to look at some of my sample PowerPoints in their large icon format. Now, when we did this 1940 U.S. federal census, that promo graphic was created specifically from the opening screen. This was just fine, normal text from PowerPoint, but I changed this part of it to look a little bit wacky. I changed the font. This happens to be my favorite font, which is Jokerman. I'll show you where it is, Jokerman. Okay, I have to do this. Cousin Russ, I have to dig at you.
Yeah, that's all right.
Because my granddaughter Bree beat you first. She got the first 100% on her indexing returns from the 1940 census. But seriously, why go to all the trouble of creating a really attractive opening PowerPoint screen for a presentation for a local genealogy society and not take advantage of this to use this graphic as part of your promo materials? This is certainly something that's doable. I mean, you went to a lot of effort. I will tell you this much, that when you look at things like this page, we've always been taught we should have a lot of white space or blank space around it. That doesn't necessarily translate well when you make a promo graphic. You want it to be bold and really sticking out there. So let me pull up Wacky so that we can look at that one. Just a second. Of course, I naturally closed PowerPoint the whole way. Okay, what were the 5 things we were going to remember, guys?
Rotate.
Well, PowerPoint, layers, borders, word art, and rotate.
Okay, so here we are on, let me pull Wacky. Let me pull that up. Open, and we'll go to our desktop here. And we'll get in the correct folder. And again, we have to tell it. We're going to pull up what I do for Wacky Wednesday, because this is the one I use the most frequently. Okay, when I first designed it, think about the fact that I rotated this wacky text, right? Now that's kind of unusual text. This happens to be curls, and notice that it's in kind of a wavy format. So what is that? That's really something called word art. And that's separate and distinct from this text, which also looks squiggly, but the shape of it is is determined by the odd GIJI font that I chose. And I made the text a different color. I rotated the Wacky. Let's rotate it back a little bit more. Do you see how some of it goes off the page up here? That's okay. We don't care about that. Wouldn't it look kind of wimpy if I did this? If I made it like this? Come on. That doesn't have nearly the impact, does it?
No.
That's the other way. So I'll do ZZ. Okay, now let me talk to you about this graphic. This graphic has been rotated, but something else has happened to it. You can rotate using this, but you can also do a different kind of a picture effect, and it has to do with which way are you looking at it on a 3D rotation. Is it like this? Is it like this? Oh, drat, I wish it would over more. You can rotate it on the north-south axis as opposed to rotating it flat on the desktop. So think about picture effects and rotation, the 3D rotation. Okay. Now let's go down to this next one.
Let me just ask a question.
You bet.
That became your, I would call it your master slide, and all the rest of the Wacky Wednesday slides will have something changed, and probably not the text with Dear Myrtle, with Wacky and Wednesday. They're going to be consistent throughout each of the pictures. The image that's there, like MacBridge for Roots Magic, may change. Is that where we're going?
That's exactly where we're going, except if you can tell from the sidebar here, because I needed to accommodate this graphic for MacBridge, I did in this one instance make Wacky slightly smaller, but if you look at all the rest of them, Wacky is almost always clear up to the top of the slide. Yep. But it's basically the same thing. This one I shrunk them both over a little bit, but the angles remained the same. It's because I wanted to have two graphics and go cattywampus one way with one way with the other. But the concept's the same.
Is that like branding?
Yes, it was branding for Wacky Wednesday.
There you go. Okay.
Now there's no Dear Myrtle graphic on it, so I'm not one of those that's so wacko crazy that she's got to have her Dear Myrtle logo on this.
But the word is there, as you would normally see Dear Myrtle.
Okay, here's one where I went completely differently. Where I dealt with a small text graphic with a very interesting stamp. I think this was part of the certification of that item. And here's the name of the event for Wacky Wednesday. But do you see how the graphic for the document was already kind of faded out? So it did well to put that completely behind. And what was I using? Layering.
Layers.
Yep, right. Okay, so pretty much, okay, I got a little crazy. I had a little bit of fun when we got to the writing for certification Wacky Wednesday. I love that really old kind of a typewriter, but I also got a big kick out of this. So I made that slide number 2 for that evening. But that's basically how I did it. Now, I want to compare this promo graphics with this one. And this one I thought, well, I should put Dear Myrtle in there because one of her very distant cousins will not be appearing. I didn't like that because I felt it was a little self-serving and got everything too squishy. I tried to make the lettering smaller so I could afford the space to put the Dear Myrtle graphic there. I just really couldn't. That oval seemed to fight this circular thing. So I actually went back and ended up with this one. And notice that the pink goes off the edge here. So I don't need to see that full confine of that pink box that says Promo Graphics, just so all the text gets on the page. And I had a really sticky wicket time trying to fit it in between the C of Wacky right here and the P of Promo. And how was I going to get Wednesday in there between how does? And I tried to be a little crazy with does in both of these. It's not perfect, but heck, I'm not on Madison Avenue, and I'm just trying to make it look fun. Of course, I've done the wrong thing, and we've been on on Russ this whole time. So let me review what I just said to everybody. This was the original. Let me put these in the order I created them, because I am so accustomed to just changing this one graphic where old Myrt is and changing it to MacBridge or whatever it is we're happening to do. What kind of software is that? That one was really glaringly bright, wasn't it? Here's the one where I made Wacky Wednesday smaller, but I kept the angles the same so that I could accommodate two little graphics to be added in there. Ancestry hints, that was a busy one that day. Very busy. Let me make it so you can see it better. I actually had 3 elements to add. Because I couldn't get that ancestry shaky leaf hint to get too much bigger without it pixelating. Look what happens if I were going to try to make that a lot bigger. See how it's starting to get a little fuzzy around the edge. You may not be able to see that because you're talking about a very tiny footprint there. What kind of document is that? Yep, that had two elements. Now we'll scroll down. Here's the one where I said the graphic that we were going to deal with for the Widow Darlington. The graphic was already poor quality and somewhat faded, but it had this very interesting seal on it. And I managed to fit that in. And these were one of the few times, I mean, I'm willing to slightly shrink the lettering if necessary, but keep the angles the same. And keep the element of this background available so that people see it as part of the branding. I think we're still in information overload, aren't we, Cousin Russ?
Yep.
Okay. Here's where I really fought back and forth between writing for certification with this graphic versus this darling little girl with her stuffed kitty cat sitting at a typewriter. But I couldn't get her to fit into this area without interfering so much with the lettering. So I made a judgment call and decided this will be my branding and this will be slide number 2 just to be whimsical once people arrived at the Hangout on Air or once they attended my in-person presentation. Now, this is just to let you know I don't always get it right. This one was my first try at Wacky Wednesday with Dear Myrtle's graphic. Just didn't work for me. It just looked better to stay with Wacky Wednesday being really big as we do normally and only making the specifics on the promo graphic topic the smaller part of it. And how do I do this? I just take the first one, Control C, go to the end, Control V. And yeah, I don't care if we remove this part. Whoops. There we go. I can do apostrophe S. Okay, it's having fun today. Now, here's why it's having fun. When you have overlapping layers of things, and I'm wanting to type apostrophe S, I may have to move this way over to the side so it doesn't interfere with this. See how it's trying to do apostrophe S? And there we go. It may decide you want to type in a different box than you intended. Okay. Now, I will tell you this much. I purposefully have made this mistake for you. Well, it's not a mistake. When you've typed something new and it doesn't recognize it in Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint or even on Facebook, etc., they put that little red squiggly underneath the text to let you know that it's not a word that it recognizes. If you go now to save this graphic, what'll it have? The red squiggly. You don't want the red squiggly. So be sure, and I've done this many times. Now see, it's trying to have me be in the wacky part. I'm going to move it slightly so that I can get this. There we go. Be sure that you ignore all or add to dictionary. Now I have to move this back up. Okay, so that when you do your screen capture, it's not going to have that red squiggly. It's not going to have anything selected with its little handles on it. You just want it to be a clean view. Now, okay, got a comment from somebody, Cousin Russ.
Yeah, I think you're getting ready to go there anyhow.
Yes.
But Lisa said, could you save the graphic page again? And there's a trick that I learned in what you just did. Now I don't know whether you know it, and I'm sure you do. If you right-click on that image in the left-hand column, there's an option called Duplicate Slide. And that's what I do. I go to the last slide that I made, and I do make a duplicate, and then I edit it so that if I have about...
I do the first one only because of this.
Yep.
Remember all these in-between ones where I slightly tweaked it, slightly moved things over? I want to at least start with the common ground of the original one before I go forth. Welcome, Jeff. Good to see you again.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah, mute your mic for a bit because it's a little bit clunky right now. Okay, and Lisa, I'm going to save this in a minute, but let's go get another text box. All right, let's say that we're going to use this text box. I'm going to right-click on it. Now, right-clicking can be a problem. If it's just a dash line, you may have challenges, but let us, in fact, you can't even copy it. You have to click again on it, on that border, so that you get a solid line. Come on. Right click, copy. Okay. Now we'll go down here, and we don't have to tell it where to go. It's going to paste it in the same position on a slide as it was in the one where you've copied it. Okay, now let's what's our problem? We got a couple of problems here besides changing the text. What's happening here, guys?
Front.
You need to move it back. Promo graphics.
All right, so that is the layering part. So we're going to right-click on it. And you have to right-click when it is on the border, not planning to have you type, because you get two different pop-up menus. And we'll send it to, let's just go backward this time. Now you'll see backward only took care of getting it behind Wednesday, but Wacky still has a problem, doesn't it? All right, so now we're going to, okay, I got to click in a different spot. If it thinks you're going to be typing, then it will not give you the menu that we're looking for. You have to be, you have to have clicked on it until you get, and it's right on the border that you do it, till you can then tell it, let's send it back all the way to the back. Okay, now this, wherever we put this, it's going to be behind that text. Now, it is entirely possible, of course, I had the Russ, I'm not moving the camera. I'm going to leave it on me because I've just spent a lot of time explaining something, and I had the camera on the wrong person. It's my fault.
Yeah, I can't do anything with it.
I know. All right, so let's, I also know because I did pink last time that I don't want a pink background. So I'm going to change and change the fill to a different color. Where am I? I must have done outline. I did do outline. I never do outline. Okay, and you can change the text as you wish. And you can have it any size you want. I try to make it different from last time. Now, what am I noticing about this green and that green?
Too close in color contrast.
They are. And I'm not willing to change this green or that yellow because that and the background in the way back are part of what is known as the branding for Wacky Wednesday. So let's go change our shape. Now, I could do it under Format Shape, but that's where you can also tell it what fill you're interested in. Ooh. Okay, that's better contrast. It still goes with the theme. Red is probably, I don't know, it just depends on how you feel about it. Blue's probably gonna, that's not bad. A darker blue. Now we're getting some echoes. Can people mute themselves, please? Not sure who it is, but we're getting echoes. Now we're not. So, Jill, dear, it might be you. That's too dark for that text, unless I make the text, whoops, I moved wacky. Unless I make the text white to get that contrast. What did I do? Control Z. I'm really glad that we have these things happen. Okay, there's the white. And in a way, that's okay, but it might not be so wonderful after all. It's kind of dark, don't you think? What else is going on here? I have a different color border, and I don't like that. So we'll change we'll change the fill. I'm going to do a lighter blue, and there will be no outline. And now that I've got it so much lighter, we need to make the text darker. Okay, that's somewhat pleasing. And that's what you do. All right, so we're going to do the Lisa thing. We're going to save this as a graphic, okay? In fact, let's change it and call it, what should we do next week? Making the best of Excel. All right, I just had to think of something so that it'll distinguish it. First of all, I saved the whole thing, which has most of my other Wacky Wednesday things, in case I have to go back or get any inspiration, or see what other colors I've used lately. Like I did use that red here, or I have a couple of odd little slides. I used yellow a couple of times in a row. I used green. I used light blue. Yeah, so it was about time I did light blue because I haven't done it for a long time. Okay, so we saved our PowerPoint. Then we go to File, Save As, and we're going to put it in the same place. And we will call this Wacky Wednesday Excel. And change it before you actually press enter. And I prefer that I use the PNG format. And it will look and let me know if there's any other by that title. And the last step is just this one. If I don't do just this one, if I do all slides, it will create a folder called whatever I just named it. And then in the folder, all the slides will be slide 001, slide 002, slide 003, and it's really a pain. You don't need all those slides. You only want that one. Okay, so This time, let's go upload it over
could
in, yes?
could you do one more? Do the same thing but a different way? And I say that because there are always more than one way to do things.
Yeah, so I'm trying to do it where it's on the menu and people
It
don't
is.
have to remember things.
Yeah, export is what is the option that I was thinking.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, let me
Okay,
finish
it
my
doesn't
thought.
matter.
Let me get other info. Let me show what happens when we upload it into your Myrtle's genealogy community. We're going to go to Photos. Here I am on Google Plus, and upload from computer. Although I could drag it if I had the folder open. And we are in. We got to get on my desktop. That's the folder I'm using right now. It's in my sample PowerPoint, and it's a PNG file. But I know what I'm looking for. If I can remember, I just forgot. Here it is. Excel worksheet. This is our sample promo graphic. We're probably going to have to do something on this now. From tonight's HOA, Hangout on Air. Okay, it fills in beautifully there. It's gorgeous. Of course, with any community, you have to determine which one of the subdirectories are you going to put it in. That means these categories on the side. And we'll share it, and this is what it looks like. So now we've got a pretty nice looking promo graphic with some text. I could have put an entire paragraph, had hyperlinks, etc. That's a pretty cute thing. Should we make one from scratch? Let's make one from scratch. We've got just 15 minutes. What were those 5 things, guys? Oh, you got a comment here.
Yeah, I have a couple comments, and this is in the community, but I just thought I would mention it.
Oh, okay.
Jan says, for people who are not design sense like me, and me too, I recommend the design books written by Robin Williams, and there's a link to that book.
Thank you.
She also has another favorite book, WWW Color by Roger Pring, and about using colors on the web. And both of these links are in the community. Thank you, Jan.
Okay, and if they are ebooks or books or websites that explain those things, it's pretty darn good. Okay, let's go to PowerPoint, and we're going to start with a brand new file. All right, now let's this is where I pick Celestial. And do you see this is where in advance you could decide if you liked a certain color scheme better than another. Well, I normally would have picked this one. Can you all see that? I normally would have picked that because somewhere in the turquoise, blue, and green, that's my favorite. This one's a slightly different version. But since I was being wacky, that's where I picked that one. They have all kinds of images of the what different tile layouts and things are. But we're just looking for the background as you would have done anyway when you're creating a PowerPoint presentation. Let's pick a different one. Let's pick Slice. Okay, here's some different color schemes that may prove intriguing to you. All right, let's be crazy. I won't pick the turquoise. I'm accustomed to that. So we'll pick that. Now, just because they've got a box that the title should be here doesn't mean you have to put it there. But basically, some good design work has gone into it, that you do not want to have your text of your title bumping into this very dramatic angled series of lines. Nobody says you have to do white text. I'm just going to put Dear Myrtle just because I can't think of anything else to type. Now, this is all caps. You may not want all caps. All caps can be changed by removing the all caps feature. You may not want it to be Century Gothic. You can pick, I like curls for Dear Myrtle. Oh, it's around here somewhere. You think I've done this enough. Also, I tend to make the myrtle part a couple of 1 or 2 steps higher just because I think it looks a little less gobbledygoopy than this. I mean, we've got all those curly cues. They kind of run together. So I tend to just take the myrtle part. There we go. And bump it up about 2 steps. Okay? All right, now let's add some ancestor photos real quick because we're running out of time. And I'm going to pick multiple at once. We'll go to my genealogy 2 data, and we'll pick just random samplings of people. Okay. Now, we may not end up using all these, but let's pull them all in. Now, initially, because I knew I wanted multiples, I've got them all stacked on top of each other. If I were to try to move them apart, they're planning to go together as one group. So we click away, and then one by one, just like we do on our real computer desktop, we would put them in different spots on our computer desktop. What's happened to Dear Myrtle?
She's behind a couple layers.
You betcha. Okay. Let me talk with you now about the border on the graphics. When you double click, usually you're at home here on this home tab or at the insert tab where you just told it to insert those pictures from somewhere on your hard drive. And I recommend that you use free clip art such as are available from the Library of Congress, on Wikipedia that are used from Wikimedia Commons, or from your own personal collection. But let's take this example of this gentleman who needs to let his hair grow a little bit, I think. What little he has. This is my dad's grandfather. Okay. When you double click on a picture in PowerPoint, and I'm using 2013, but it works the same way in earlier versions, you are at the picture tools portion of and so all the options here are about cropping a picture, for instance, or figuring out a border for a picture. Now I'm going to pick this. Watch what happens. I mean, by default, this was what had been scanned. It was rectangular, although it's an oval picture. Well, look at this. All right, what if we take the border and make it no outline? Does that look better? I don't know. And then it will continue to keep that. We've got another one here to do that with. How did we do it? Its handles are on because I've selected or chosen that one. I went up to the options. I'm picking metal oval, but then I'm turning off the actual border itself so it has no outline. All right. I don't like that his picture's bigger than hers, so one of the ways I play around with it is like this. I put it above, underneath, and when you move it, you can kind of see both of them kind of fading through. If I want to get them really close to the same size, that's one of the tricks for doing it. If it's off a fraction, it's not too bad. This graphic is too small. Let's see if we make it bigger. We're not using that. See how it pixelates. So it was a tiny little one. We're just going to press the delete key. We don't like that. It may be the same with this one. Yeah, no good on that one. Okay, let's just work with those two ovals and we'll get rid of this one. All right. Now, I'm going to show you what word art is like. Let's just take this text and we're going to, I only copied and pasted it, and we'll get rid of it in a minute. Word art is under here, under the Insert menu. where you have word art options. But if you double click, well, we'll just pick one. All right, let's see what we have. I didn't like what I did there. Let me get rid of that. We'll do word art, insert word art. People wonder how I got my little kind of a shadow, a drop shadow in front of the word your text here. So let's say photo genealogy. All right, let's say that's your thing. Now we want to keep the text itself dark. Why?
Because the background's light.
Yeah, it's not going to do well for it to be yellow. Green might look kind of weird. Blue might be interesting. Let's bump it up and make our text a lot bigger. Now when it pushes to the next row, you're going to have to make this larger. Stretch out the sides. I'm not saying this is a good plan. I'm just saying it's what we're doing. I'm playing around with some of the tools. Okay. Insert a text box. Now by default, the text is going to be whatever has been preset for this particular, as a style for this particular series of slides. They wanted us to have white text. I decided I like blue. Let's make it bold. Let's make it shadow effect. Shadow meaning shadow around the upper letters. We can see maybe we don't like that graphic. I mean that particular font. Maybe you like a different font. That's too curly-cuey. Some of these are a little too hard to read. Okay, but back to our text box. Beginning, let's see, 7th January. And I always think we should put less text. 2015, 10 p.m. Eastern. And this year, Jill, I'm starting to put the Greenwich Mean Time thingy on all of
Good
mine.
idea.
I always think about you guys and worry about you. So, okay. Yeah. And you got to tell them where. So bit.ly, Myrt, no period, next. All right. Sometimes when you are here at the end of a URL and you press enter, if it had the HTTP, let me do it. And you press enter at that point, it changes the text. You don't want that text to be black and interfere, unless it gives you a good idea that maybe you want the whole thing to be black instead of white. If you go back, it reverts it back. It's not clickable. You might want to do this. You might want to do this and make this blue, since we kind of like that. Let's see what happens here. So do you see how I'm just kind of, ooh, I forgot to let it be blue after all. I'm kind of getting accustomed to that. Might want to put something across here. I don't know, but do you see how we are working on developing this? I don't think I like this photo genealogy. Do you think it's too big? What do you think? Let's bump it down. This text
Bring it
has
down
to,
the bottom.
yeah, this text has to be at least 20 points. It's 28 points. I don't know. I think 28 was good. Or you could make it in a whole line going across the top like this with a little dash between them. And move it like that in the upper corner. Make it all justified left. And of course you got to move it over so you can see it. Maybe you don't put the space between them. Do you see how you can just fiddle around with it till you feel good about it? I want to show you something about the word art to make it a little funkier. When you're in word art, which this was, we have some options for word art. And it has to do with how it can rotate or not, like in a wave pattern. And even after all this work, you may decide, geez, does it really look better if it's one of the other colors? That is absolutely ghastly. No, we're leaving it with the yellow. Do we want a completely different schematic? Now you know where I get some of these. If I ever choose that one, Russ, kill me. All right, this one would be interesting, but what's wrong with it?
Can't read it.
Can't read it. We don't have contrast. Now we come in with the white. Maybe we come in with a gray, because white is just too bold. I don't know. You fiddle around. Oh, it remembers the last text. It looks white, doesn't it? But it's actually a very light gray, so it isn't too strikingly odd. How did I do this in, we're not saving this. How did I do this in a different PowerPoint? Let me pull this up, and we've just got a few seconds to go here, about 2 minutes. Any major questions from people in the community?
I got some comments I'll bring in. Jan says, I like Myrt's design sense, but some of us don't have her instinct for placing elements on the screen, and I would say in presentations. Jan also says, excellent tips about the oval graphics.
Okay.
And there's another one from Lisa, who says that oval border is worth the cost of the presentation. Thanks. And Jan comes back and also reminds us of contrast. So,
Okay.
great comments.
Okay, thank you guys. All right, let me pull up this PowerPoint so that we can get it to open up for you. I'm going to do, there we are. I'm going to do a series of short subject interviews with Holly Hansen at FamilyHistoryExpos.com. This is the slide I created for the first one, which was regarding her January retreat. Most of this graphic itself and the background of this, do you see how this is a separate layer? Most of this was from her website. And so all I have to do is change this part every month. I've already chosen the color and change this part. So for the February one, I'm going to go like this. Well, I could do the duplicate slide. All right. And then I don't know if it's female ancestors, but I'm just pretending it is. Okay, and I don't like that I have research here and research there. Elusive female ancestor. All right. You almost need 2 lines of text there to balance it out so it doesn't look like this text is hanging by itself. And then we'll just change this January to February. So again, we're getting the branding for these short subject videos that I'm doing in conjunction with Family History Expos. They basically are doing a research retreat once a month, every month in 2015, and it's especially important because the Family History Libraries cut their staff, their paid staff, the ones that know how to do research in specific areas like Scandinavia in January. So every month I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just like every week, I don't have to reinvent the wheel for Wacky Wednesday's logo. I pretty much work with the same thing. Remember, though, if there's any squiggly lines underneath here, because it's a phrase that may not be in the dictionary as far or the list of words as far as Microsoft Office is concerned. You'll want to be sure to correct those so that there's no red squiggly showing up. I've also, in the olden days, I actually used to use a program like Snagit and go in and take the graphic this way and save it. And do you notice what's going to happen here? What's going to show up? But the border around this particular text box. Try not to do that, guys. But one of the advantages of just going to File, Save As, and picking the same folder, which is where you just opened your PowerPoint, is that the graphic, the promo graphic that goes with your PowerPoint is right there in the same folder as that PowerPoint. And remember, you want to export just one, and we got it made. Okay, how's our time, Cousin Russ? Boy, I made it with a minute to spare because we started at 8:03 or 7:03 my time. Okay, any last questions before we go tonight?
Well, Jill had to drop off. She said, I must go. Visitors have arrived for a swim. She uses canva.com. It's a different graphic for her graphics. So
like
thank
Canvas,
you,
yes.
Yep.
Well, and you know, I use Snagit, I use PaintShop Pro by Corel, I use Photoshop Elements, but this seemed to me the easiest way. And I don't have to worry about the size of the graphics being too big for Facebook or Google Plus. They work fine on Instagram, etc. And why go use another program when I just spent all this time developing the main screen of my PowerPoint?
Yep, I do the same thing. I use PowerPoint for all of my graphics on my blog now.
Okay, in the last few seconds, Jeff, I just wanted to say hi to you.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. And Betty Lou, I hope that you had fun watching how old Myrt does graphics. I'm certainly capable. I do have to admit I was an art major for part of my years in college. I think every girl who graduated high school in 1969 thought, oh, I'll just go take a few art classes and then meet a nice med student to marry or something. I don't mean to denigrate myself, but since I'm talking about myself, I can say that. Then when I got serious, I changed over to early childhood development, you know, thank heavens we have things like these technology tools, these software programs to help us promote our upcoming events. So that's it. That can be saved in you know, that graphic can be inserted at the top of your page for handouts, or you could crop and just use part of it. It can become a black and white graphic. That's not hard to change. Those aren't within the confines of tonight's presentation. But I think, Russ, it's about time to go, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
So now I know what my crazy, very distant cousins are doing when they lock me out of my office on Wednesday nights for Wacky Wednesday. They get to do one subject for 1 hour. Cool beans. I love it. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining Old Myrt tonight. And thank you to Cousin Russ for bringing your comments in, to Jeff, to Jill, and to Betty Lou for joining me on the panel. I did a lot of demoing and not a lot of talking or asking questions. So thanks for bearing with me, folks. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.